Today we're going to talk about how to put cleats on your bike shoes. In order to do that, we have asked Joe here to help us out. And it doesn't really matter what kind of cleats you have, whether you have Look, SPD, SPDSL, Speed Play, makes no difference. All these rules apply the same. What we're going to do is put the crank arms so that they're parallel to the ground. So to do that, I'm just going to turn backwards right about like that, down just a little. There we go. And then hold the wheel so it doesn't turn. When the cranks are flat with the ground, you want to make sure that his foot is also flat. You don't want it toe down like that. You don't want it like this. Just make it so it's nice and flat, like a natural riding position. The next thing you want to do is you want to identify the ball of his foot. So just kind of like poking around a little bit, and I usually do that by squeezing across and determining the widest part and feeling also for the big toe bone where it sticks out here. When you identify the ball of the foot, you want that point on top of the center of the pedal spindle. It's right there, and I'm going to put my thumb on it. After you identify the ball of his foot, you then identify the center of the pedal spindle, and you want those points to line up. Now, the way it's looking here, they are off a little bit. So what I want to do is move the cleats so that his foot comes back. In looking at the difference between the two fingers here, it looks like his cleat has to move about 1/8 of an inch. So what I'm going to ask you to do, Joe, is if you can come off the bike and give me both your shoes. Now, to adjust the cleats, this particular one has 3 screws, so I'm going to loosen those up. If you want the shoe to move forward on the pedal, you move the cleat backwards. Now, it looked like he needs about another maybe 1/8 of an inch or so of his foot on the pedal, so I'm going to move the cleat backwards 1/8 of an inch. To do that, get a screwdriver. Going to just loosen up the 3 bolts. Slide the cleat backward. Now, as the cleat comes back, you also have the ability to rotate the cleat. And we're going to show you how to adjust the rotation in a second. That should get the ball of your foot over the pedal, and we'll check that. But first, we have to check the rotation aspect. So what I need to do is lock this back in. Cranks parallel to the ground. And I'm going to be sliding the shoe over, making sure that the heel does not hit the crank arm. So that's good. You can get it into a straight position this way, and then you also want to make sure you can swing out just a hair. All right, so rotationally, that's pretty good. Now we have to match up your 2 cleats. So we're going to get the heel cups lined up, and then you want to get the tips of the cleats lined up. All right, this is pretty close. I have to move it just a little bit. One thing that you don't want to do, and that is to rely on distances between the screw head and like the end of the cleat, because shoes are not made perfect. So you want to have an identifying point like a heel cup or the end of the shoe and use that as a locating point when you get your cleat set up. For people who are racing, at this point what you might want to do is you want to set it up so that the heels are out just a little bit from the bike. For general riding, or if you're spinning or just touring, you want your foot to be straight on the bike. The reason racers want their heels out just a little bit is, and I can show you this by just a simple example, by holding my feet parallel to each other, when I bend at the knees, my knees track straight out, straight in. Now I'm going to exaggerate the movement, but if I put my heels out like this, when I bend, my knees are going in this way. When you're in a racing tuck position on the bike, you want your knees to swing in between your elbow and the top tube of the frame. And I'll show you that a little bit later when I get Joe set up. Once the one cleat is adjusted, you're going to get the second right-hand shoe, line up the points of the cleat, and line up the heel. And that's going to give you the ability to set both cleats the same distance fore aft. So in doing this, this cleat has to come back a little bit. Now in comparing those, they look really good. Now I just want to check the rotation. So same deal, you're going to lock it in. When you swing it, the heel all the way in, make sure it doesn't hit the crank. You can set straight and then make sure you can set it so that it comes out just a little bit. All right, that's fine. All right, let me have you try these back on again, Joe. Now we're going to put the cranks parallel with the ground again. I'm just going to double check that I have the ball of his foot where it needs to be. The ball of your foot lines up with the center of the pedal spindle. If you were doing triathlons, I would set it up with your foot so that the ball of your foot was just a little bit behind the pedal spindle by 1/16 of an inch. That promotes faster pedaling, but with less power each time, less force. Ultimately, what that does is it gives you more speed. If you were doing touring or recreational riding, I would set it up so that more of your foot was on the pedal. So the ball of your foot would be in front of the pedal spindle. That slows down your pedaling speed, but gives you more torque. For hill climbing, it just makes that aspect of cycling easier. 99.999% of the time, the ball of your foot lines up with the pedal spindle. And that's true of spinning also. And that's all we need to know today about how to set your cleats up.